The twin suns of Oralis glowed across the silver trees that surrounded the young colony. It was a quiet world filled with shining leaves, calm winds, and the soft hum of drones flying through the skies. In this new home of humanity, two young friends spent their days building small machines and dreaming of flying ships. Their names were Ryan and Mira. Both had grown up in the first colony settlement, a place called Haven Ridge, where engineers and scientists tried to make a new world bloom among the stars. Ryan was a quiet boy who loved machines more than people. He would spend hours repairing old drones that miners left behind. He liked how machines followed rules. They did not lie or argue. They worked as long as someone cared for them. Mira, on the other hand, was full of life. She laughed at everything, talked too much, and dragged Ryan into every adventure she could find. She liked climbing the tall silver trees, racing through the fields, and exploring the half-built domes near the edge of the colony. They were different in every way, yet they understood each other without many words. Ryan would fix things, and Mira would test them until they broke again. Then Ryan would sigh and fix them once more. That was how their friendship worked. One evening, while the suns were setting and the air turned golden, Mira sat beside Ryan near the lake outside Haven Ridge. The surface of the water shimmered with light, and tiny drones floated above, scanning for minerals. Ryan had built a small flyer that could glide across the water. It was made from scrap metal and old circuit parts. It did not look perfect, but to them it was a masterpiece. When they set the flyer on the lake, it actually moved for a few seconds before sinking halfway. Mira laughed so hard she nearly fell in. Ryan frowned but could not hide a small smile. "You know," Mira said, brushing her hair back, "one day we will build something that really flies." Ryan nodded, still watching the broken flyer drift. "Maybe one day." "And when we do," Mira said with a grin, "you will marry me, because only someone who can build a ship with me deserves to fly beside me." Ryan laughed for the first time that day. "Then I better start learning faster," he said. The words were a joke, nothing serious, but the moment stayed in their minds longer than either expected. The suns fell below the horizon, and they promised to meet again the next day to build something better. But the next morning, everything changed. Mira's family received a transfer order from the colony's administration. Her parents were skilled navigators, and they were needed on a new world called Tirad Prime. The ship would leave in 2 days. Ryan could not believe it. He had thought they would always be together in Haven Ridge. Mira tried to stay cheerful, but even she grew quiet when she realized how far Tirad Prime was. It was hundreds of light years away. Once she left, they might never see each other again. On her last evening, they met again at the lake. The small flyer still floated near the edge, half sunk and covered in silver dust. Ryan had repaired it just enough to move a little across the surface. He showed her proudly that it worked again. Mira smiled, but her eyes looked wet. "You really fixed it," she said softly. "I said I would," Ryan replied. "Maybe next time it will fly." She looked at the machine and then at him. "Then when you make one that really flies," she said, "you better find me. I will keep that promise, Ryan." He wanted to say something clever, but his throat felt heavy. He only nodded. Mira took a small silver ring from her wrist bracelet and pressed it into his hand. "Keep this," she said, "so you remember to finish what you started." Then she walked away toward the waiting transport ship, leaving him standing by the lake with the ring in his hand and the sinking flyer at his feet. After that day, Mira was gone. The ship left orbit and her family became part of another world. The colony of Haven Ridge went on as usual, but for Ryan, something had changed. The lake felt empty. The silver forests looked dull. The laughter that once filled his days was missing. Years passed, and the colony grew larger. New settlements were built. The young children of the first settlers became the workers and engineers of the new generation. Ryan studied mechanical systems and learned to work with orbital machinery. He joined a team that maintained satellites and defense drones around Oralis. His work took him far above the planet, where he could see the twin suns rise over the horizon from space. He became one of the most skilled engineers in the colony, known for his calm nature and his ability to repair anything. Yet even as time moved forward, he never forgot Mira's words. The small silver ring stayed with him, hidden in a small box near his workstation. Sometimes, when the nights were long and the stars looked close, he would take it out and turn it in his hand. He wondered if she still remembered him or the promise they had made as children. Some said the universe was too big for such memories to matter. But Ryan did not believe that. One day, a communication message arrived from the Union Command. It announced that a fleet from the Stellar Union Defense would be arriving soon to inspect the outer colonies. Rumors spread that something strange had been detected under the surface of Oralis. A faint signal, deep beneath the crust, was interfering with long-range systems. Ryan was assigned to assist the incoming team as part of the colony's engineering crew. He did not think much of it at first. Such missions were common in the outer sectors. But when he saw the list of incoming officers, he froze. Among the names, one stood out: Commander Mira Hale. He stared at the name for a long time, unable to move. The spelling, the initials, everything was the same. Could it really be her? He told himself it might be a coincidence, but his heart refused to believe that. He felt something stir inside him, something that had been quiet for many years. He remembered the silver lake, the broken flyer, the laughter. He remembered her promise. For the next several days, he could not focus on work. Every sound, every announcement from the colony base made his pulse quicken. The fleet was due to arrive within the week. The sky above Oralis began to glow with streaks of light as ships entered orbit. The airfields prepared for landings. The people of Haven Ridge gathered to welcome the visitors. Ryan stood near the docking bay, his hands trembling slightly as he checked the systems. Then the first shuttle landed, its engines releasing a wave of dust across the platform. Out stepped the officers in gray and white uniforms. They looked strong and disciplined, their faces serious. And among them was a woman with short, dark hair and eyes that seemed to look through everything around her. Ryan felt the world slow down. She looked different. The bright smile he remembered was gone. Her posture was sharp, confident, shaped by years of command. She turned her head slightly, scanning the workers nearby. Her gaze paused on him for a brief moment, and in that instant, he knew. It was her. Mira Hale, once the girl who laughed by the lake, now stood as a commander of the Stellar Union Defense. Ryan wanted to call out to her, but he could not find the words. She did not seem to recognize him immediately. Her expression stayed calm, almost cold. She gave quick instructions to her team and moved toward the command station. Ryan stood silently as she passed by, the sound of her boots echoing on the metal floor. For the rest of the day, he could barely concentrate. When the meeting ended, she finally approached him. Her tone was formal when she spoke. "Engineer Ryan Voss, correct?" He nodded. "Yes, Commander." She looked at her data pad, then back at him. "Your records show high proficiency in planetary systems and drone operations. You will assist my team in accessing the underground signal site." Her words were professional, but her eyes flickered with something that was not in the report. Maybe she did remember him, or maybe she was only trying to place his face. Ryan wanted to ask her if she still had that same memory from long ago, but he stopped himself. "Yes, Commander," he said instead. She gave a short nod. "Good. We begin at dawn tomorrow." Then she walked away again, leaving Ryan standing there, caught between the past and the present. That night, he stood by his window, looking at the twin suns fading behind the silver trees. He thought about how strange time could be. The girl who once dreamed with him by the lake had returned as a commander, carrying authority and silence instead of laughter. The ring she had given him still rested in its box, untouched. He opened it and stared at it again. Maybe this was his chance to finish what they started. But as he remembered her cold eyes, he also felt a chill of uncertainty. She was back, but she was not smiling. And deep beneath the world of Oralis, something waited for both of them. The morning sun rose slowly over Oralis, spreading a golden glow across the metallic surface of Haven Ridge Base. Engineers moved between machines. Pilots checked their crafts, and soldiers from the Union Defense Fleet prepared for ground operations. It was a busy morning filled with orders and signals flashing on every screen. Ryan stood at the edge of the landing field, his uniform slightly wrinkled from a sleepless night. He had waited for this day without knowing why his heart felt both heavy and hopeful. Commander Mira Hale had returned to Oralis after 10 long years. Once she had been a joyful girl who dreamed of flying. Now she was a calm and silent officer, leading a mission from the Stellar Union Defense. The years had changed her voice, her walk, even the way she looked at the world. She had seen things beyond this colony, things that Ryan could only imagine. When Ryan arrived at the command station, Mira was already there. She stood before a large display showing the underground layers of the planet. A blue marker blinked deep below the surface. The scientists called it the core signal. It was a pulse that had been detected 3 months ago, buried miles beneath the crust of Oralis. The signal's pattern was not natural. It had rhythm and purpose, like a message waiting to be read. Mira turned as Ryan entered. Her tone was even. "Engineer Ryan, you are assigned to Section 3. You will assist with the drilling drones and data relays." "Yes, Commander," he replied. Her eyes met his briefly. For a second, he thought he saw a flicker of recognition, but it passed quickly. She turned back to the display. "We start in 1 hour. Prepare your team." Ryan nodded and left to gather his tools. Inside his chest, he could feel his pulse quicken. It was strange to stand so close to her again after so many years. He wanted to ask about Tirad Prime, about her family, about everything that had happened, but he knew this was not the time. The air around her carried authority, and her team followed every word she spoke. As the sun climbed higher, a group of transport crawlers rolled out of Haven Ridge. They carried heavy drilling equipment, scanners, and defense units. The journey to the signal site took them across the silver plains where ancient trees shimmered under the light. The forests of Oralis were peaceful but mysterious. Their leaves reflected sunlight like mirrors, and some said the trees could sense vibrations through the ground. The colonists treated them with quiet respect. Rian sat inside one of the crawlers, checking the drone controls. Across from him sat Mira, reviewing mission data on her screen. Between them was silence. The hum of the crawler filled the air. After a long moment, Ryan finally spoke. "You have changed, Commander," he said softly. Mira looked up from her screen. "Everyone changes," she said. "Especially out here." Ryan nodded. "It has been a long time since you left Oralis." Her expression remained calm. "Yes, a lifetime ago." He smiled faintly. "Do you remember the lake near Haven Ridge?" She looked at him for a second. "Yes, you used to build strange machines there." "Still do," he said. "Some things never change." She said nothing for a while, then looked out the window. "Back then we were children. The stars seemed simple. We thought everything could be fixed with a few tools and a promise." Ryan wanted to say more, but she turned her attention back to her data pad. The conversation was over. He understood she was no longer the same girl who laughed beside him. The stars had made her strong, but they had also taken something away. By midday, they reached the excavation zone. The site was marked by a wide circle of diggers and scanners. The ground shimmered faintly, and strange readings appeared on every monitor. The air buzzed with static energy. As Ryan stepped out, he felt a light vibration under his boots. The ground itself seemed alive. The scientists and engineers began setting up the equipment. Drones flew overhead, mapping the terrain. The soldiers took positions around the site, weapons ready in case of any unknown danger. Ryan worked beside the drilling crew, connecting power lines and calibrating sensors. He could feel Mira's presence nearby, calm and focused as she directed her officers. After hours of work, the first drill began to pierce the ground. The sound echoed through the valley. Dust and heat filled the air. Data screens flickered as the signal grew stronger. Ryan monitored the readings. Something about the pattern fascinated him. It was not random. It repeated in intervals, almost like words spoken in another language. By evening, they had reached a depth of nearly 3 kilometers. Suddenly, the drill stopped. The vibration under the ground increased, and a strange hum rose through the soil. The team froze. Lights flickered across their helmets. Ryan looked at the readings. "Commander, we have hit something solid." The drill sensors show a metallic surface. Mira stepped forward. Show me. Ryan displayed the data. It is not a natural formation. It is large and hollow. The pulse is coming from within. The ground trembled again and the hum turned into a soft, rhythmic tone. It was almost musical. Mira ordered the drill to stop. She called for a probe to be lowered into the hole. The small drone descended, sending video images to their screens. What they saw made everyone silent. Beneath the crust was a vast metallic chamber, its walls glowing faintly with blue light. The patterns on the surface were smooth and curved, unlike any human design. Symbols moved across the metal like flowing water. The hum grew louder as if the chamber sensed their presence. Mira stared at the screen. This is not a mineral deposit. This is a structure. Ryan nodded slowly. A structure built by someone not human. The soldiers tightened their grip on their weapons, but Mira raised her hand. No fire. We do not know what it is yet. Ryan's curiosity grew stronger with each second. He watched the glowing lines on the chamber walls. They pulsed in sync with his heartbeat. He touched the side of the console without realizing it, and the readings on the screen shifted. The frequency of the pulse changed slightly. Mira noticed it. What did you do? Nothing, he said quickly. I only touched the panel. The signal stabilized again. Mira looked at him closely, her eyes narrowing. It reacted to you. That makes no sense, he said, confused. Maybe it does, she replied quietly. Some alien technology responds to biosignatures. Perhaps it reads certain energy patterns. The scientists took samples and recorded every detail. As night fell, they set up temporary shelters around the site. The drilling team was ordered to rest. Mira remained near the console, studying the patterns. Ryan sat beside the campfire, unable to stop thinking about the strange way the machine had reacted to him. Later, as most of the crew slept, Ryan approached Mira again. She stood near the edge of the excavation pit, her face dimly lit by the blue glow rising from below. You have not slept, he said. I cannot, she answered. This discovery could change everything we know about Oralis. Ryan looked into the pit. Do you think it is dangerous? Everything unknown is dangerous, she said. But it is also an opportunity. The Union sent me here because they believe the signal could be a threat. Yet I think it may be a message. Ryan watched her profile against the light. There was still a spark of the girl he once knew, hidden under the armor of a commander. You always liked mysteries, he said softly. Mira gave a faint smile. And you always liked fixing broken things. He hesitated before speaking again. Do you ever think about the past? About the lake? Her smile faded. Sometimes. But the past belongs to another world. We live in the present now. Ryan looked away. Maybe. But sometimes the past returns when we least expect it. She said nothing more. And they both stood in silence, watching the blue light pulse below them. The next morning, the team began constructing a lift to reach the chamber. Ryan worked with the engineers to stabilize the entrance. As they lowered the first support beams, another tremor shook the ground. The hum became louder, spreading through every radio channel. The soldiers covered their ears. Screens filled with static. Then, as suddenly as it began, the noise stopped. A bright flash burst from the pit. Everyone shielded their eyes. When the light faded, the humming was gone, replaced by a calm, steady tone. The chamber had opened a small circular entrance at its center. Mira stepped forward. Prepare the exploration team. We are going in, Ryan's heart pounded. He knew this was the moment where everything would change. He checked his tools and followed her toward the opening. The air inside was cool and clear. The walls shone with soft light and strange symbols moved like ripples across the surface. As they moved deeper, the light shifted colors. Blue turned to gold. The patterns formed shapes that almost looked like faces or eyes. Ryan felt a strange pull, like the place was calling to him. Mira stopped beside a large panel that glowed brighter when Ryan came closer. It reacts again, she whispered. He placed his hand on the surface. The wall responded instantly, sending lines of light racing across the chamber. The symbols rearranged themselves into a spiral. Then a clear voice echoed through the hall. It was not human, but it spoke in a rhythm that felt familiar. The scientists gasped. The voice repeated again as if testing their presence. Mira turned to Ryan. It is communicating with you. Whatever this is, it knows you are here. Ryan's mind filled with questions, but none of them had answers. He looked at the glowing patterns, wondering why an ancient machine beneath the surface of Oralis would recognize him. An ordinary engineer from Haven Ridge. The sun rose red over the plains of Oralis, painting the silver forests in a strange light. The air around the excavation site carried a quiet tension. Soldiers stood alert, scientists worked on their equipment, and engineers whispered to each other about what they had seen. No one could explain the glowing chamber or the voice that had echoed from within. The discovery was beyond anything the colony had ever found. Rian had not slept. He sat outside his tent, watching the mist roll across the valley. His thoughts circled around the strange event from the previous day. The machine had reacted to him, and the voice had spoken only after he touched the wall. He did not understand why. He was just an engineer, not a scientist or a soldier, yet something inside that chamber seemed to recognize him. When the morning alarm sounded, he rose and walked toward the command post. Commander Mira Hale was already there, speaking with the science team. Her uniform was neat, her voice calm, but her eyes looked tired. She had been awake all night studying the data. As Ryan approached, she handed him a tablet. "We analyzed the sound frequencies," she said. "The signal matches no known language, but it contains repeating patterns. It is not random. It is structured communication." Rian scrolled through the data. "Do we know what it means?" "Not yet," she said. "But we discovered something else. The energy readings spike whenever you are near the device. It seems to respond to your presence." Ryan frowned. "That makes no sense." "I am just a technician." Mira crossed her arms. "Maybe it is more than that. Maybe it responds to something inside you. Oralis was chosen as a colony for a reason. The first survey data showed faint energy fields even before settlement. Perhaps humans were always meant to find this place." Ryan hesitated. "Do you think this machine could be from another species?" "I do," Mira said softly. "And I think it is very old. The metals are not from this system. The chamber could be older than the planet's surface." The thought made Ryan uneasy. If the structure was that ancient, then whoever built it was far beyond human knowledge. Mira turned to her officers. "Prepare the descent team. Today we go deeper. I want full recording and translation systems active. No one touches anything without permission." The crew moved quickly. By mid-morning, they were ready. Ryan joined the team as they entered the lift cage and descended into the glowing pit. The hum of the machine grew louder as they went down. The light from the walls pulsed gently like a living heartbeat. When they reached the base, the golden chamber opened before them, silent and vast. They stepped inside carefully. The air was warm but breathable. Symbols moved slowly along the walls. The scientists pointed scanners at them, trying to record every detail. Ryan kept close to Mira as they walked toward the central platform where the light was strongest. Mira gave orders in a steady tone. "Keep all communications open. If the signal changes, report at once." Rian examined a nearby console that looked like flowing metal. When he touched it lightly, the surface rippled and formed shapes that resembled constellations. Mira saw it too. "It reacts again," she said. "It knows you." Before he could reply, a low vibration passed through the floor. The walls brightened and the voice returned, louder this time. It was not a sound that came through air, but through the bones, deep and clear. Everyone froze as the chamber came alive. Mira shouted, "Record everything. Do not move." The voice spoke again, its rhythm slower, as if trying to match their language. Lines of light appeared in the air, forming a holographic display. It showed images of stars, planets, and shapes that looked like ships. Then came scenes of destruction, worlds burning, and dark shadows spreading across space. Ryan watched in silence. "It is showing a story," he said quietly. "Maybe it's history." Mira nodded. "Or a warning." The images changed again. They showed a smaller figure made of light reaching out to a human shape. The two figures joined hands, and the light grew brighter until everything turned white. Then the hologram ended, and the hum faded to silence. The team stood still, stunned by what they had witnessed. Mira was the first to speak. "Everyone out, now. We need to analyze this before we make another move." As they climbed back to the surface, Rian looked back one last time. The walls had dimmed, but faint symbols still glowed near where he had touched the console. It felt like the machine was waiting for him to return. Back at the command tent, Mira gathered her officers and the scientists. "What we saw is not random imagery," she said. "It is a record. The structure is some kind of memory vault, storing visual data from an ancient civilization. One of the scientists, a thin man named Oren, nodded. The energy pattern resembles a data network. It uses light and vibration to store information. But the strange part is the recognition function. It should not be possible for it to identify one human among many. Mira turned to Ryan. Yet it does. Oren looked at Ryan curiously. Maybe he carries a genetic marker that triggers the system. I was born here, Ryan said. My parents were colonists from Earth, nothing special about me. Perhaps not, Oren replied. But exposure to Auralis radiation could have caused minor adaptations. The planet emits low-level energy fields. Maybe that is the link. Mira leaned forward. Could the machine be using him to communicate? Possibly, Oren said. If it recognizes him as compatible, it may use his presence as a signal pathway. Mira nodded. Then we continue through him. If the device wants to talk, we will listen. Ryan felt uneasy. He was an engineer, not a messenger between species. Yet, when he thought about the holographic images, he felt something stir inside him, a strange connection he could not explain. It was as if part of him understood the rhythm of that voice even without words. Later that evening, Mira visited him at the workshop where he repaired a few damaged drones. The air outside was cool and the stars of Auralis twinkled brightly. She leaned against the doorway and watched him for a moment. You have not spoken much since the incident, she said. Ryan kept his eyes on the tool in his hand. There is not much to say. I do not know why it reacts to me. Mira stepped closer. You are not afraid. He thought for a moment. A little, but more curious than afraid. It feels like the machine is trying to tell us something important. She studied him. You always were like this. You see patterns where others see noise. You fix things because you believe everything has a purpose. He smiled faintly. And you used to believe that everything could be explored if you had enough courage. Her expression softened for a moment, but then she turned serious. The Union will not wait long. If they think this site is a threat, they will order it destroyed. We must understand the message before that happens. Ryan frowned. You think they would destroy it so easily? I have seen it before, she said quietly. The Union found something similar years ago on another colony. They feared what they could not control. They burned it before they could learn the truth. Ryan looked at her carefully. Then why are you different? She took a breath. Because I am tired of destroying what might help us. Humanity cannot keep living in fear. We must learn to face what we find. Her voice carried a weight he had never heard before. He realized that the years away from Auralis had changed her deeply. She was no longer the girl who laughed at broken drones, but a leader carrying the burden of hard choices. The next morning, they returned to the chamber. Mira ordered the others to stay near the entrance while Ryan approached the console again. As he reached out, the wall lit up and projected new symbols. The voice returned, softer this time, and the hologram appeared once more. The same images of stars and battles flashed before them, but now they were clearer. Ryan focused on one symbol that repeated often. It looked like a circle surrounded by lines. He traced it in the air, and the voice changed tone. The hologram shifted to show an image of Auralis itself. Beneath the planet's surface, bright veins of light spread outward like roots. Mira gasped. It is showing us the planet. The entire crust is connected to the structure. This is not just a chamber. It is part of a network. Ryan nodded. Maybe the whole planet is a machine. The voice spoke again, faster this time. Ryan closed his eyes, listening to its rhythm. He began to repeat the pattern softly, like echoing the sound. The hologram responded instantly, forming words in human script. The scientist gasped. Mira stepped closer to read. The words were simple and clear. The enemy will return. Prepare the shield. Humanity must awaken. The lights flickered and the chamber grew silent again. Mira looked at Ryan, her face pale. It knows about humanity. This message was meant for us, Ryan whispered. Or for someone like us. Maybe it waited for humans to arrive. The scientists began discussing theories rapidly. Some believed the builders of this machine were ancient allies of humanity. Others thought it might be an automatic defense warning from a forgotten civilization. Mira remained quiet. She knew that whatever this message meant, it would shake the Union command. That night, Ryan stood alone outside his tent, looking at the stars. He thought about the words the machine had shown. The enemy will return. What enemy? And how could they prepare a shield against something that destroyed entire worlds? He heard footsteps behind him. Mira approached slowly, her expression softer than before. I sent a report to Union Command, she said. They will want to see this for themselves. Ryan nodded. And if they decide to destroy it? The cave beneath Oralis was darker than ever. Only the pale blue lights from Ryan's scanner gave shape to the strange symbols on the walls. The air was thick, charged with a soft vibration that made the tools hum in their belts. Mira stood beside him, her uniform dusty from the long hours of digging. Her voice was calm but carried tension. She told him that the fleet command had grown impatient. They wanted answers soon, or they would close the site and seal everything below it. Ryan tried to focus on the readings. The scanner displayed waves of unknown energy flowing through the ground. He had spent nights studying the patterns, and they were unlike any power source known to humans. The machine was waking up, slowly responding to their presence. He believed that it was not a weapon, but a communication device. Mira found it hard to trust that idea. To her, every unknown machine could become a danger. They walked deeper into the structure. The walls changed color as they moved, reflecting faint silver light. It felt alive, as if it could sense their steps. Ryan placed his hand on the surface. It pulsed beneath his fingers, glowing brighter. The energy spread like ripples in water, reaching the chamber at the center. Mira drew her sidearm instinctively, unsure of what would happen next. A strong wave of light filled the space. For a moment, they both had to shield their eyes. When the brightness faded, they found themselves standing before a large orb floating in the air. It was made of crystal-like material, spinning slowly. Symbols appeared across its surface, forming patterns that looked almost like language. Ryan stepped closer and said it might be a control core. Mira ordered him to keep distance, but the orb reacted the moment his hand neared it. The orb opened like a flower. From its center came a projection. It showed a world filled with tall silver towers and green skies. Strange beings with glowing eyes walked peacefully among gardens of crystal. Then the image shifted. Ships filled the sky. Explosions burned the towers. The same beings screamed silently as fire consumed their world. The projection ended with a single symbol flashing again and again. Ryan's scanner translated part of it as warning. Mira felt her heart race. The machine had recorded the fall of an entire civilization. She looked at Ryan, who was frozen, watching the orb. He whispered that these beings must have built this planet's cities long before humans arrived. They had tried to leave behind a message, but no one had been able to understand it until now. Mira asked why it reacted to him. Ryan said he did not know, but the machine seemed to recognize human energy as similar to its makers. As they spoke, the ground began to tremble. The orb expanded, projecting thousands of symbols around the room. The air shimmered and a new image appeared. It showed the sky above Oralis, and from the distance came dark shapes, enormous ships moving through the stars. The machine spoke in a low tone that shook the walls. It was not words but sound that carried meaning. Ryan translated it slowly. It said, "They are coming again." Mira called her team on the communicator, but there was only static. The signal interference had grown stronger. Ryan said the machine was blocking outside contact. It did not want to be disturbed. She stepped back and aimed her weapon at the orb. She shouted at it to stop. The projection changed, showing human soldiers in armor, attacking structures like this one, destroying them with explosives. Then the voice repeated, "They are coming again." Mira lowered her weapon, realizing the message was not a threat but a plea. Ryan moved closer and placed his hand on the orb again. A soft light surrounded him. His eyes reflected the blue glow. Mira called his name, but he did not answer. The machine was scanning him, connecting to his thoughts. He could see images in his mind. Maps of stars, planets, and battles fought long before humanity existed. The ancient race had fallen trying to warn the next species that would rise after them. When the light faded, Ryan stepped back, breathing hard. Mira rushed to him, asking if he was all right. He said he was fine, but now understood part of the machine's purpose. It was both a library and a beacon. It had waited for minds strong enough to activate it. He told Mira that the same threat that destroyed the ancient race was returning, and humanity was the next target. Mira struggled to process his words. She had been trained to follow command and deal with logical threats, not visions from lost civilizations. She told him that they needed to destroy the machine before the fleet decided to do it themselves. Ryan refused. He said destroying it would erase the only warning humanity had. He wanted to study it, to send the message across the colonies. Mira warned him that command would not allow that. The Union feared anything that could challenge their control. Their argument was interrupted by a loud rumble from above. Dust fell from the ceiling. The machine pulsed brighter, reacting to something outside. Ryan ran to the control console. He managed to open a small view window through the orb's surface. What they saw made them freeze. Union ships had begun lowering heavy weapons toward the site. The fleet had decided to act without waiting for Mira's report. They were preparing to bomb the chamber to prevent any possible threat. Mira clenched her fists. She contacted command, shouting that the machine was not hostile, that it held vital information. The response came cold and final. Destroy it before it spreads further interference. She turned to Ryan with a helpless look. For the first time, her voice broke. She said she had tried to protect him and the colony, but command would never listen. Ryan said there was still one way to save the machine. They could activate the final sequence and send the warning message before the strike hit. Mira hesitated. Activating it could release unknown power, maybe destroy everything. Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder and said that when they were kids, she used to say humans were meant to rise higher, to learn and build, not fear. She looked at him silently, remembering those words. He turned toward the orb and started the sequence. The room filled with blinding light again. The symbols spun around faster, forming a spiral of energy. The orb's surface cracked open, revealing a bright sphere at its core. The vibration grew so strong that the ground shook violently. Outside, the fleet's targeting systems went dark. Every ship above the site lost control for a moment. Mira watched the readings on her wrist console go blank. The machine had disabled all weapons in orbit. Inside the chamber, Ryan stood firm as waves of light surrounded him. The orb spoke once more in that deep, ancient voice. He translated its words through the scanner. You have chosen to awaken the message. It will go where it must. The energy rose upward, shooting through the rock layers into the sky. It became a beam of blue light that reached the clouds and pierced space. Every satellite and ship in the system saw it. When the light faded, silence returned. The orb lowered itself to the ground, now dim and still. Ryan collapsed from exhaustion. Mira caught him before he hit the floor. She looked up at the ceiling where the beam had passed, feeling both fear and hope. She whispered that command would not forgive them for disobeying orders. Ryan smiled weakly and said that maybe one day they would understand. Moments later, the communication systems came back online. The fleet demanded an explanation. Mira ignored the calls and focused on Ryan, who was slowly recovering. He looked peaceful, as if he had seen something greater than all the wars humanity had fought. She helped him stand and guided him toward the exit tunnel. The walls glowed faintly as they passed, as if the structure itself was watching them leave. When they reached the surface, the night sky was glowing faint blue where the beam had gone. The fleet remained in orbit but made no move to fire. Mira received one final message from command. It said the investigation would continue under strict control, and that both of them were to be held for questioning. Ryan looked at her and said that even if they were arrested, the message was already sent. Somewhere across the stars, someone would hear it. Mira stood beside him quietly. She finally spoke, saying she had come back not only for duty but because she wanted to see if the boy who once dreamed of flight still existed. Ryan smiled and said maybe that boy had only been waiting for her to return so he could try again. The sky above them shimmered with soft light, and for a moment the world felt new again. The machine beneath the ground slept once more, but its purpose had been fulfilled. Humanity had been warned, and two old friends had awakened something far greater than themselves. The joke from their childhood had led them into the heart of a forgotten truth, and now they both stood at the beginning of something larger than either could imagine. The story of Oralis had only just begun. The aftermath of the orb's awakening left Oralis in a strange calm. The twin suns glowed pale above the silver forests, and the air carried the faint hum of energy from the buried structure. Ryan and Mira walked across the plains toward the main base, their steps slow but determined. The night had been long and neither of them had slept, but both felt a new clarity. Humanity had been warned, and now it was their responsibility to prepare for what might come. Union Command had sent messages demanding explanations. They wanted to know who had activated the ancient machine and why it had sent signals across the galaxy. Mira read the messages silently, her face a mask of determination. The fleet remained in orbit, observing but hesitant to act. Somehow, the display of power from the orb had forced them to pause. It had been a demonstration, not of violence but of control and understanding. Rian adjusted his tools in his bag. The message is out. Whatever is coming will know we are ready. Mira studied him closely. You made the right choice. We did not destroy it, and now we have a chance to prepare rather than be destroyed. He nodded, but a shadow crossed his expression. I keep thinking about the ancient race. They tried to warn everyone, but failed. Are we sure we can succeed where they could not? Mira put a hand on his shoulder. We have each other, and we have knowledge they never gave to anyone else. That makes a difference. They arrived at the base where a group of scientists and soldiers gathered. The scientists were eager to examine the orb's recordings while the soldiers remained cautious. The Union officers were present too, their faces stern. They had come expecting a weapon to be destroyed, yet the orb remained intact, glowing faintly beneath its protective shields. Mira called the group to order. We will study the message carefully. The warning is clear, something is coming. Our job is to understand it, prepare, and protect humanity. One of the scientists, a woman named Kira, asked, Commander, how do we even begin? The technology is far beyond our comprehension. Ryan smiled faintly. We begin by learning what it wants to tell us. The patterns, the energy flow, even the symbols, they all have meaning. We have to listen carefully. Mira nodded. We divide into teams. Engineering, research, and defense. Everyone contributes. We cannot rely on the Union alone. They see threats but not solutions. Over the next days, Ryan and Mira worked tirelessly. They spent long hours in the chamber, deciphering symbols, mapping energy lines, and activating small functions within the orb. Each discovery revealed more of the ancient civilization's knowledge. It was a race that had reached incredible heights, but they had fallen to an enemy whose methods were unknown. The orb's warning was not just about defense. It was about understanding and growing stronger before the enemy arrived. During one of these sessions, Ryan realized something extraordinary. The orb's communication system could be adapted to send messages through space faster than any human technology. If properly calibrated, it could reach distant colonies, informing them about the coming threat. Mira watched as he worked, quietly admiring his focus. She remembered the boy by the lake, the one who had joked about flying ships and marriage. That boy had become a man capable of interacting with a machine older than humanity itself. By evening, they had completed the first test transmission. The orb sent a signal far into the outer colonies. Every relay confirmed receipt. The ancient race had built a network designed to protect knowledge across light years, and Ryan had unlocked it. Mira felt hope, something she had not felt in years. They were not alone anymore. Humanity had a chance. That night, Ryan and Mira stood outside the chamber watching the stars above. The sky seemed alive, filled with the possibilities of distant worlds. Mira spoke softly. Do you remember the lake? Ryan nodded. I do. I remember the flyer, the joke about marriage, everything. She turned to him. Do you ever wonder why we came back together after all this time? He smiled. Maybe the stars wanted us to finish what we started. Not the joke, but the promise to rise higher than we thought we could. Mira's eyes softened. She said nothing, but her smile returned. It was faint, yet genuine. For the first time since she had returned, she seemed free from the weight of command and duty. The following day, the fleet commander in orbit arrived to inspect the site personally. Mira led him to the chamber. Ryan explained the orb's functions, the message, and the transmission tests. The commander listened, skeptical at first, but the evidence of the signal reaching multiple colonies was undeniable. He ordered further study, reluctantly accepting that the orb was more valuable alive than destroyed. Mira and Ryan continued their work, documenting every function, every pattern. The ancient machine taught them not only about the enemy, but about technology, energy, and strategy far beyond human imagination. Ryan realized that the bond he shared with Mira allowed them to understand the orb in ways others could not. Their teamwork was the key. Weeks passed and the base transformed. Laboratories filled with scientists, engineers, and soldiers. Drones mapped the surrounding terrain. The orb became a central hub for knowledge and communication. The story of the ancient race spread across the human colonies, inspiring hope and preparation. Mira and Ryan led the effort, growing closer with each passing day. One afternoon, as the twin suns set over the horizon, Mira spoke to Ryan privately. You know, when you joked about marriage, I never imagined we would end up here, saving humanity together. Ryan chuckled softly. Neither did I, but somehow it makes sense. We always dreamed big, even as kids. She looked at him, the old sparkle in her eyes finally returning. Do you remember the promise? He reached into his bag and pulled out the small silver ring she had given him years ago. I never forgot. Mira took it from him, smiling genuinely this time. Then maybe it is time to keep it. Ryan laughed lightly. After all we've been through, a promise from childhood seems simple. She nodded. Simple, yes, but important. It reminds us why we keep moving forward no matter what comes. The next months were filled with preparation. The orb provided knowledge about energy shields, defensive strategies, and even propulsion systems that could advance human technology. Mira and Ryan worked together day and night, teaching others, translating data, and testing ideas. The colony became a beacon of hope, showing what humans could achieve when curiosity, courage, and cooperation guided them. Finally, the day came when the fleet received confirmation. All colonies had received the orb's warning. Systems were being prepared, defenses strengthened, and humans across multiple planets began to unite. The threat was still unknown, but humanity had time. The preparation gave everyone confidence. For the first time, they felt that survival was possible. As the twin suns dipped below the horizon, Ryan and Mira stood together at the edge of the silver forest. The air was quiet, peaceful for the first time in weeks. Mira looked at him and spoke softly. We did it. We made a difference, Ryan smiled. Yes, we did. And we did it together. She stepped closer. Do you still remember what we promised? He held her hand gently. I do. I promised I would build something that could reach the stars, and I did. We did. She laughed lightly, the sound warm and bright. Then maybe the rest of the universe is ready for us too. Ryan looked at her and realized that the years, the distance, the wars, and the dangers had brought them full circle. From two kids joking by a lake to leaders of a mission that could save humanity. They had grown, learned, and survived together. Their bond, once playful, had become strong and unbreakable. The orb beneath the planet slept quietly, its warning sent across the stars. Humanity was prepared to rise, and the story of Oralis became a symbol of hope. The past and the future had met in the present, guided by two friends who dared to dream. Mira looked at Ryan again. Do you remember the lake one last time? He nodded, taking her hand. I do, and I will never forget it. Or you. The twin suns disappeared beyond the horizon, leaving the silver forests glowing softly under the night sky. They stood together, ready to face whatever came next, knowing that the universe was vast, but human courage and unity were greater. The joke of childhood had become a promise kept. The past had shaped the present, and the future waited patiently for them to rise. Ryan and Mira smiled at each other, their hearts light, knowing that together they could face any challenge that the stars would bring. Humanity had awakened, and the journey had only just begun.